I felt a surge of excitement when my family organized a graduation celebration for me. However, the moment I lifted the lid of the cake box, the words written on it read, "Congratulations, loser." My parents burst into laughter as though it were all just harmless fun, but I didn't find it amusing at all. I rose to my feet, collected my belongings, and walked out, though not before making one final move. 3 weeks later, they phoned me in a state of panic because for the first time in my life, I had truly believed my parents were proud of me. When I stepped into the house that day, I saw decorations everywhere, real decorations, with blue and silver streamers hanging across the room. A large banner stretched over the living room that read, "Congratulations, Ryan." The house was filled with people, family members, neighbors, even a few of my dad's coworkers. There was also proper food laid out, not just boxes of takeout pizza carelessly tossed onto the table like an afterthought. I had never witnessed them go to such lengths for me before. Not for anything. For Jake, though, it had always been different. When he got accepted into college the first time, they threw him an enormous party, invited all his friends, and even bought him a brand new laptop as a present. When he dropped out a year later, they still treated him as if he had done nothing wrong, never once raising their voices at him. But when it came to me, there was nothing, no praise, no celebration. I was always labeled the responsible one, the one who didn't need attention. That's what they told me every time I achieved something. And yet, here I was, standing in a house decorated just for me. My mom pulled me into a hug, smiling as if she truly meant it. "We're so proud of you, honey," she said warmly. "This is a big deal." I blinked, unsure how to respond. I had spent years suppressing the pain of never feeling like I was enough for them. And now, maybe things were different. Maybe I had finally done something worthy of their pride. My dad patted me on the back, laughing. "First college graduate in the family, huh? Look at you." I smiled. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to believe it. Maybe they finally saw me. Maybe I was no longer an afterthought. I noticed my brother sitting in the corner, scrolling through his phone, completely disengaged as usual. Normally that would have bothered me, but not today. Today was supposed to be mine. Someone handed me a drink, a toast was made, and people came up to congratulate me, smiling, shaking my hand, asking about my plans for the future. I felt like I was on top of the world. Then the cake was brought out. It looked large and expensive, clearly ordered in advance from a proper bakery. My mom carried it in with a proud smile and placed it in front of me. My dad grinned and gestured toward it. "Go on, take a look." Still smiling, still light with hope, I leaned forward. And then I saw the words, "Congratulations, loser." My stomach dropped instantly, like I had been hit out of nowhere. For a brief moment I thought, this can't be right. It has to be a mistake. Then the laughter began. It started with my dad, a small chuckle that quickly grew into full laughter, as if this was the funniest thing he had ever seen. My mom laughed too, trying to cover it with her hand, as if that made it any better. Jake was practically doubled over, clutching his stomach and wheezing with laughter. "Oh, come on," my dad said when he saw my expression. "It's just a joke." Jake smirked. "Relax, Ryan. Don't act so surprised, you know it's funny." In that moment, I felt like a complete fool. Of course this wasn't real. Of course they weren't proud of me. Why would they be? Why would anything change? I glanced around the room. A few people looked uneasy, exchanging awkward looks, but no one spoke up. Not a single person defended me. I forced down the nausea rising in my throat and kept my composure. A joke, that's all I was to them. Something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, at least not in the way they expected. It wasn't sadness either. It was something sharper, clearer. I slowly lifted the glass in my hand. The room grew quieter as everyone watched, waiting for my reaction. I smiled at my family. "I just want to say thank you," I said smoothly, "for always being exactly who I thought you were." The laughter faded. "To this party," I continued, gesturing toward the decorations and the cake. So much effort, so much thought put into it. I'll never forget it. Silence filled the room. My mom shifted uncomfortably, and my dad's smile faltered. And to the future, I added, raising my glass slightly higher, because I've finally learned how to treat you the way you've always treated me. No one said a word. I held their gaze for a moment longer, letting the tension settle in, letting the discomfort take hold. Then I finished my drink in one go, placed the glass carefully on the table, and turned toward the door. I picked up my bag and slung it over my shoulder. Before leaving, I glanced back one last time. Jake was watching me now, his smirk beginning to fade. My dad cleared his throat. "Oh, come on, Ryan. Don't be dramatic. It's just a—" I cut him off with a faint smirk. "Oh, and one more thing. You'll figure it out soon enough." Then I walked out. No shouting, no breakdown, no tears, just silence. A heavy, suffocating silence followed me as I left. I didn't need to look back to know confusion was already creeping in. They would try to dismiss it, convince themselves I was overreacting, that I'd eventually come back. They had no idea what was coming, but they would. Soon enough, they would. I was never the child they truly wanted. Jake was. From the time we were kids, it was obvious he could do no wrong. He was the golden child, the favorite, the one who made my parents light up. He was the one they defended, protected, and spoiled, always given second, third, even fourth chances no matter how badly he messed up. And me? I was simply tolerated. I used to wonder why. What made him so much more deserving? What did he have that I didn't? I worked hard, earned good grades, stayed out of trouble. I did everything right. And still, I was the one they brushed aside. It all began with small moments that slowly added up. When I was 6, I won a school spelling bee. I rushed home, glowing with pride, clutching my certificate, waiting for them to notice, waiting for even a single word of acknowledgement. That same day, Jake had scribbled something on a piece of paper. My mom went on and on about it, proudly sticking it to the fridge and calling him her little artist. My dad tousled his hair and told him he had real talent. I held out my certificate, full of hope. My dad barely looked at it, clearly unimpressed. Spelling? That's not a real skill. My mom gave me a quick smile, but it was distant, distracted. "Oh, honey, that's nice, but don't brag, okay?" I wasn't bragging. I just wanted to be seen. By the time I turned 10, I had already stopped trying. If Jake got into trouble at school, it was because the teacher was unfair. If he broke something at home, it was just an accident. If his grades slipped, it was brushed off. Not everyone is a nerd like Ryan. Meanwhile, if I so much as rolled my eyes, I was labeled disrespectful. If I asked for anything, I was called ungrateful. When Jake got accepted into college, they threw him a huge celebration. When I got in, my dad didn't even lift his eyes from his phone. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't need their approval, right? But deep down, there was still a small, foolish part of me that hoped. Hoped that if I stayed quiet, worked hard, and proved myself, one day they would finally notice me. One day they might even be proud. Then came college. I knew better than to expect help with tuition. I didn't even ask. I earned a scholarship, took out loans, and worked part-time to cover the rest. Jake, on the other hand, barely scraped through high school. Yet when he got into a second-rate college, my parents acted like it was a grand achievement. "We'll support you with whatever you need," my mom told him, and they did. They paid his tuition, bought him a car, and sent him money every month. Jake spent his first year partying, skipping classes, and barely passing exams. By his second year, he had completely flunked out. But my parents never got angry. They didn't blame him. Instead, they pitied him. It was too much pressure, my mom said, shaking her head. We probably pushed him too hard. Pushed him? They had handed him everything. But the moment that truly broke something inside me came next. They started planning his comeback. They found another college, made calls, pulled strings, and got him admitted again. They reassured him that this time would be different, promising to support him all over again, paying for everything, setting him up in an apartment near campus. And then they turned to me and casually informed me that I would be co-signing his lease, as if it were already decided, like it was my responsibility to make sure Jake had a place to live while he got yet another chance. "You have good credit," my dad said. "It won't cost you anything. Just a signature." I should have refused. I should have said no, but I didn't. I was so conditioned to meet their expectations that the words slipped out before I could stop them. Yeah, fine. They barely acknowledged it. Just assumed I'd go along, like always. Jake didn't thank me. He didn't even recognize what I was doing for him. And in that moment, it finally hit me. It was never going to change. No matter what I did, I would never be enough. I could have achieved the impossible, and my dad would have shrugged. My mom would have smiled politely, and Jake would have joked about me trying too hard. It wasn't that they didn't see me. It was that they didn't care. So when I walked into that graduation party and saw the decorations, the banner, my mom's bright smile, and my dad's firm handshake, I let myself believe, just for a second, that maybe things had changed. Maybe this time they were proud. Then they handed me the cake. They laughed. And just like that, I understood. They were never going to respect me. But that was fine, because after that night, they would never get to use me again. I walked out of that house, but not before making one final move. Not before doing the one thing they never expected. Not before setting everything in motion so that, in 3 weeks, they'd be the ones calling me, desperate, panicked, finally realizing they had pushed me too far. 3 weeks passed before it all caught up with them. At first, I ignored their calls, not entirely out of spite, though maybe a little. Mostly, I just didn't care anymore. I had spent years answering every demand, rushing to help whenever they needed something, twisting myself into knots trying to prove my worth to people who never valued me. So when the missed calls started stacking up, when my mom left voicemail after voicemail, and Jake's text shifted from WTF to you need to fix this, I let them sit there, unread, unanswered. I already knew why they were reaching out, and the longer I stayed silent, the worse things became. Mom tried concern first. Honey, something strange is happening with Jake's apartment. Can you call me? Then came confusion. Ryan, did you forget something with the lease? The landlord says you're not listed as his co-signer anymore. After that, Dad's anger took over. What the hell did you do? You gave your word. Fix this. Call me back. And then Jake. No fake politeness, no pretending, just pure rage. You screwed me over. Fix this. Now. I actually smiled when I read that message. 3 weeks earlier, after leaving that party, I had one last thing to take care of. I walked straight to my car, pulled out my phone, and called the landlord's office. I had formally withdrawn as a co-signer. Just like that, Jake's lease meant nothing. And now he was learning the reality of it the hard way. They had all treated it like everything was already settled. After all, I had said yes before. I had always done what was expected of me, never questioned anything, never pushed back. They assumed I was still that same person, but they should have known better. The moment I saw that cake, something in me snapped. I was done being walked over. And now, for the first time in their lives, they were dealing with actual consequences, and it felt satisfying. I finally picked up the phone on the 22nd day. I let my dad's call ring twice before answering, then leaned back, waiting for the inevitable outburst. It came quickly. What the hell did you do? I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear, letting him rant. You made a commitment. You gave your word. Your brother's lease is about to collapse, and you need to fix it, now. I stayed silent. I didn't argue, didn't explain, just let him wear himself out. Eventually, he noticed I wasn't interrupting. There was a brief pause. Then his voice dropped into that low, threatening tone, the one he used whenever he wanted to guilt me. You need to act like a woman and take responsibility. That almost made me laugh. Responsibility? Where had that speech been when Jake dropped out of school? When he wasted all the money they handed him? When he spent his entire life coasting on excuses? I exhaled slowly before finally speaking. I don't think I will. Silence. I could almost hear the disbelief crackling through the line. What? He demanded. Calm and steady, I repeated. I don't think I will. The silence stretched, then snapped, like something breaking under pressure. You selfish little. I hung up. He called again immediately. I ignored it. Then Jake called. Ignored that too. Then my mom. That time, I answered because I already knew exactly how it would go. She started gently. Sweetheart, we need to talk. I responded with a flat hum. Do we? She sighed, as if I were the unreasonable one. I know you're upset. We all know the party didn't go the way you wanted. I scoffed. Is that what we're calling it? A party? She ignored the sarcasm. But this is serious, Ryan. Your brother's future is at stake. I almost laughed. His future? When had they ever cared about mine? I had fought my way through school alone, worked myself to exhaustion, taken on loans, and where were they? Busy supporting Jake. And now they expected me to sacrifice for him too? I kept my voice calm and controlled. I think Jake will figure something out. She stiffened. You know he can't get approved on his own. Sounds like his problem. Ryan. She tried again, sharper this time. This is what family does. No, I replied, my patience finally slipping. This is what I did for years. And what did I get in return? A cake that said, "Congratulations, loser." Silence. Real silence this time. I let it linger. Let her sit with it. Then I spoke softly. And now you're starting to realize just how big a mistake that was. Her breath caught. It was just a joke. I smiled. So is this. Then I hung up. I stared at my phone for a long moment, half expecting it to ring again, but it didn't. For the first time in my life, they had nothing to say. Because they knew I meant it. They knew they had finally pushed me too far. And the best part? This wasn't even the end. They still hadn't realized how badly they had messed up. But soon enough they would, and when they did, they'd be calling again, desperate. Because I hadn't just canceled the cosign. I had walked away from everything. And without me, their golden boy was about to lose it all. They didn't call for a few days. That didn't surprise me. My dad was probably raging about how I was an ungrateful disappointment. My mom was likely crying about how I was tearing the family apart. And Jake? He was probably sulking, throwing a tantrum because, for once in his life, he wasn't getting his way. But I knew it wasn't over. There was still one final thing they hadn't realized yet. And when it hit them, that's when the real panic would begin. I didn't have to wait long. That Friday evening, as I relaxed with a beer, enjoying the rare quiet, my phone buzzed.
Jake.
I smirked and let it ring. He called again, and again. By the fifth attempt, I finally answered, keeping my tone easy. Thought we were done here. His voice came through loud and frantic. What the hell did you do? I took a slow sip of my beer. You'll have to be more specific. The money, Ryan, the tuition money, it's gone. There it was. I smiled, because this was the part they hadn't figured out yet. It wasn't just the cosign I had backed out of, it was everything. I had been financially supporting them for years, covering small expenses, filling in gaps, lending money that was never repaid. And when they started planning Jake's second shot at college, they casually expected me to contribute. You're doing well now, my dad had said, like it was nothing. You should help your family. I never actually agreed, but they assumed I would. They always did. So, I did the one thing they never saw coming. I cut them off completely. The tuition deposit they were counting on from me? Never paid. The bills I used to quietly handle?
Gone.
The invisible financial cushion I had been for them disappeared overnight, and now they were sinking. Jake had already lost his apartment. Now he was losing his second chance at school. Without my money, without my support, without my credit, he had nothing. And me? I had never felt lighter. Ryan, you're not getting it. Jake was still going off in my ear. The school called, he said. They told me the payment didn't go through. I don't have enough to cover it. I'm about to lose my spot. I let out a quiet hum. Damn, that sucks. There was a pause. Then his tone turned sharp. Fix it. That actually made me laugh, out loud. It was almost unbelievable how deep his sense of entitlement ran. Even now, after everything, he still believed I owed him something. You're serious? I said, shaking my head. You said you would help, he snapped. No, I replied calmly. You assumed I would. That's a big difference. He stumbled over his words. Mom and Dad said. I cut him off. Oh, I'm sure they did. But here's the thing. I don't care what Mom and Dad said. Silence stretched between us. Then, more quietly, he tried a different approach. Ryan, you know this is my last chance, right? There it was, The desperation, the realization that he was actually in trouble. I leaned back, keeping my voice even. Yeah, I know. He swallowed. So. I dragged out my response. You'll figure something out. That was the exact line my dad had given me when he drained my college fund. It was what they had always said whenever I needed help, whenever I struggled, whenever I had to fight through things on my own. Now, it was their turn to hear it. Jake finally snapped. You're such a bitter piece of... You're doing this just to punish me. No, I said smoothly. I'm doing this because I finally learned how to treat you the way you've always treated me. I let that settle in. Then I hung up. The next day, my mom called. She was already crying before I even said hello. Ryan, she sniffled. We need to talk. I sighed. No, we don't. Jake is going to lose his spot, she said, her voice thick with tears. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. She took a shaky breath. You're punishing all of us over a stupid joke. I smiled slightly.
No, Mom.
I'm finally treating you exactly the way you've always treated me. She let out a soft gasp, like that truth actually hurt. And for the first time, I realized something. She wasn't just calling for Jake. She was calling for herself too. Because without my financial support, they were struggling. All those small things I used to handle. All the times I stepped in without even thinking. Now that I was gone, they were finally feeling the consequences. You have to forgive us, she pleaded. We're family. I let out a quiet, amused breath.
Funny.
You only say that when you need something. She hesitated. Ryan, please. I could hear it now, the real panic in her voice. It wasn't just Jake's second chance at school that had fallen apart. Their whole way of living had started to collapse, all because I walked away. Because I wasn't coming back. Because they had finally pushed me too far. I let the silence linger a moment longer. Then I spoke. I don't owe you anything, I said, steady and firm. Not anymore. And for the last time, I hung up. After that, I never spoke to them again. They kept trying, of course. The calls went on for months. Guilt trips, fake apologies, desperate pleas for one last favor. But I had made my choice. And for the first time in my life, I chose myself. Jake never returned to school. The deposit deadline passed, and he lost his place. My parents couldn't come up with the money in time. They had already burned through everything trying to support him, so there was no backup plan left. I later heard from a relative that he had moved back home, stuck under the same roof as our parents. A full-grown adult. A college dropout with no degree, no job, and no real future prospects. It felt almost poetic. For years, I had been the one they underestimated, the one they ignored, the one they mocked. And in the end, I was the one who walked away. They were the ones left behind. So, what do you think? Did I go too far, or not far enough?